Hello, my book buddies. It is May. It's a new month, and April was such a good reading month for me, quality-wise. I read so many books that I rated 5 stars. So I thought that today's video would be recapping what I read in April, talking about my thoughts, my feelings, what I loved, what I didn't love, and also maybe a bit of my May TBR. I'm not someone who's super good at sticking to my TBR, but I have so many amazing books on my bookshelf and I am on a book buying ban. We are not adding to this TBR. So instead we're trying to get books off of it so that we can get some new ones. There are so many goodies, there's so many books that I want to read, and I'm just really excited. So we're going to talk about what I want to read for the coming month and what I just read. I read 10 books in the month of April. This is obviously only 5. Some of them are on my Kindle and some of them I have already lent out to people to read. So we got 10 books to talk about. How about we go in chronological order? We'll start with the first book that I read this month first and go from there. The first book that I read is one that I have already lent out, and that is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. It is a pretty cozy fantasy in my books. We're following Emily, who is a professor, and the world is pretty similar to the world that we live in if we lived in like the early 1900s. But it turns out fairies are real, and she is, I believe, a Cambridge professor and one of the leading scholars in fairies. And she is working on making a complete encyclopedia of fairies. She goes to this isolated village to try to find the hidden ones, which are a type of fairy similar to humans. This is one of those books where there's all different kinds of fairies, not just like big, strong fae that are human-like. There's all different types of fairies, and you should check out the fan art for this book. It's so good. And her kind of academic rival slash friend decides that he is going to tag along, and we get a little bit of a romance maybe brewing there. And I just found this book so cozy. I really loved it. I know that the second book in the series is already out and I'm dying to read it now because I just thought this was the perfect cozy fantasy. I don't read that many fantasies that I would describe as cozy. I mean, this one did end up having some adventure towards the end, but it just felt like the kind of book you want to curl up on a cold day next to a fire and like sip hot cocoa and read this book. That's the vibe it gave me. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I really liked it, and I ended up immediately giving it to my mom and saying, you need to read this, because if you are an avid book buddy, you know that me and my mom have the same book tastes. She hasn't read it yet, but she's gonna get around to it, and I think that she's really gonna love it too. And from there, the second book, Delila Green Doesn't Care. Oh my goodness, guys, when I say that this book took me forever to get through, I think that it took me an entire month to read this book, which is crazy because it does not take me very long to read a book typically. I can read a book in like a day. Some of these books I read in like a day. This one took me forever. I just couldn't get into it. So it is a lesbian romance, a sapphic romance. I think we can call it a lesbian romance even though one character is a lesbian and the other is bisexual. We are following Delila Green in Delila Green Doesn't Care. She goes back to Bright Falls, which is the town that she grew up in, for her stepsister's wedding. Her father passed away when she was a child and she was raised by her stepmother, who's a bit of an evil stepmother. She does not have a good relationship with either her stepsister or her stepmother, but they hire her as the photographer for her sister's wedding. Her sister Astrid had these 2 best friends growing up, Iris and Claire, and they all weren't that nice to Delila. But Delila starts falling for one of her sister's friends, Claire, and the romance begins. They team up with Iris, the other best friend, because they don't think that Astrid's boyfriend, I mean fiance, is a very good guy. They don't think it's a good fit. They decide to like kind of anti-parent trap them and get them apart. It was a pretty fun read. And there is spice in this, which is always nice because I feel like I read so much straight spice. So it was nice to just have a book that had queer representation. I ended up giving this 4 stars, mostly because it took me so long to get through. It's also like a rom-com, so it's a bit funny. And I know people love this book. And I learned that it's part of a series, so there's 2 more books in it. There is a book about Iris, the best friend, and then a book about Astrid, the stepsister. So I am interested in reading those, but it just took me so long to read. I don't know why. I was just not sucked into this. I think that because this is a book where the romance is really driving the plot, I just didn't love it. And I'm realizing that that's just because I don't particularly love those kinds of books that much. I'm not a huge romance girly, I'm learning now that I've been reading a lot more in different genres. I'm not a huge romance girly, but this was good. Next up, we went to a non-fiction and read Feel Good Productivity by Ali Abdallah. He is a productivity expert. I know that he's a YouTuber and a content creator. He's also a doctor, and this was an interesting book. I think that I anticipated it to be a little bit more about productivity and a little less about feeling good, but they go hand in hand if you learn in this. But they go hand in hand. If you read this book, you will know. So it's very much a book about how to feel better. And I think I needed, personally, a book that was a little bit more about productivity. I really enjoy neuroscience and psychology. That's actually what my university degree was in. I studied neuroscience, and this just tickled parts of like my science brain, and I loved that. I ended up highlighting it and reading it a bit like an academic text, and I enjoyed it, but I feel like it was a little long, it was a little bulky. It's very much a compilation of research. I feel like I also knew a lot of things that they talked about in this book, and I feel like I ended up just skimming it. So for all of those reasons, I ended up giving it 3 stars. Next is a book that I already lent to my mother, and that is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I've never read a book by Ali Hazelwood before. I know that she's written a lot of very popular romance books, but I've never read any of those. This was my first jump into her pond, and oh my goodness, what in the werewolf AO3 fanfiction did I read? So this is a paranormal romance, and it is about a vampire and a werewolf, an interspecies relationship, if you will. It's kind of a forced marriage. They need to marry, and that is exactly where it starts, is with the marriage. They are trying to smooth things over between the werewolves and the vampires and make them coexist better, if that makes sense. So they think that by marrying off the alpha werewolf and the vampire king, lord, the high vampire, I don't know, his daughter, together, it'll help kind of keep them from fighting. There was so much about this book that I was like, oh my god, I feel like I am reading fan fiction. Not because it's bad, but because I read, okay, so I like, how am I gonna say this? I enjoy Hermione fan fiction. Draco Malfoy and Hermione Granger fan fiction. I'm just confessing my, what is that called when you love something and it's like cringy and you don't want to tell anyone? Guilty pleasure. Hermione fanfiction is my guilty pleasure, and I swear that I have read this exact story as a Hermione fanfiction. I'm not saying in any way that this author has stolen work and plagiarized anything. I just mean, I swear that I've read just about the same thing. But it was Draco Malfoy was the werewolf, and Hermione Granger wasn't a vampire, she was a person, but in trying to smooth things over, she marries Draco. Oh, welcome to my life. And I just need for all of you to know that the spicy scenes are a little weird because they are not humans. Okay, moving on. I gave that 3 stars, by the way. I read The Ever King on Kindle Unlimited, and oh my god. I think that this might be one of my new favorite fantasy series. It was so good. It's so underrated. I've never heard anybody speak about this series, and I absolutely loved it. I devoured it. I was so engrossed in it. Oh my goodness. So it's about fae. We have land fae and then sea fae. It's kind of a bit of a pirate fairy book. or a Viking fairy book. The land fae and the sea fae do not get along. There is this chasm that separates them. They cannot cross it and they hate each other. So it starts off by one of the princesses being kidnapped by the Sea King. We have fan mates. We have a morally gray male main character. What else do we have? We have someone being like kidnapped and taken prisoner. It is an enemies to lovers book. My only qualm with this series, is that the right word? Qualm? Who knows? The only thing I didn't absolutely love about this series was I didn't get to marinate long enough in the enemies. I want to really truly believe that they absolutely hate and despise each other. And just because it was a very fast-paced book, I feel like I didn't get to marinate in them hating each other for long enough. So that's literally the only downside I had to this book. It was so fast-paced. It was so engrossing. It was unique in the magic sense where the sea fae's magic is in their voices. I will say though that it's a pretty dark book, but it has trigger warnings at the start, so make sure you read those before diving into this series. There's also a sequel. Obviously, I gave the first book 5 stars, and I was a little nervous going into the second book immediately after, because sometimes that can be a bit of a letdown when you're riding so high and then the next book is just not it. I can confirm for you that the second book is it. I'm not going to say what the second book is about just because I don't want to spoil the ending and things that happen in the first book, because it's basically a immediate continuation of the same storyline. So we go immediately from the end of book 1 jumping into the start of book 2. There's no gap in the timeline there, and it was so good. I absolutely loved this series. So I know that it's like a duology kind of in the sense that the first and second book in this series, those two, the Ever King and the Ever Queen, both 5-star reads. So those first 2 books are following Eric and Livia and their love story. The series is going to keep going, but their love story is done. The next books, we're going to follow another couple from the story. I was excited that I could just read these 2 books and feel very complete, but I loved it so much that now I am actually really excited to see where this series goes, and I'm excited about all of the side characters. This was one of those books where I felt very invested in kind of everyone in the story. And it kind of gave me Court of Thorns and Roses vibes with like the found family aspect. This was kind of similar. So I loved it. It was great. 5 stars all around. I definitely recommend everyone read this. And it's on Kindle Unlimited, which is a huge plus. I basically made this video so that I could talk about that series because I didn't read it in any reading vlogs this month and I just needed to talk to you guys about it. And then I read, off of my April TBR, I did it, The Only One Left by Riley Sager. So this is a thriller, and in general, I love Riley Sager's books. Is it Sager or Sager? I love his books, but there was a big but there. I read The House Across the Lake and hated it. I do not like when my thrillers turn out to be paranormal, and I was a little worried that this one was going to take that same turn. I don't want ghosts in my thrillers unless I'm reading like a horror, sci-fi, paranormal book, you know? So in this book we're following Kit, who is a home care nurse, and she has been accused of murdering her mother and cannot get a job in this town because of it. There's someone that says, I will hire you anyway, and that is Lenora Hope, who has been accused of murdering her entire family at 17 in a Lizzie Borden-esque killing spree. That she killed her mother, her father, and her sister. She is paralyzed and can't move because of a disease that she got and some strokes, I think, and completely bedridden and needs a full-time carer. So Kit becomes her carer, and then one night, Lenora, on a little old typewriter she has because she can move one hand, says, I want to tell you everything about what happened between me and my family that night. And it's a good book. I gave this 5 stars. I found this to be a very thrilling thriller. It was a little spooky. It was really engrossing, really fast-paced. I did not want to put it down, which is exactly what I want in a thriller. As you know, if you're one of my book buddies that watches all of my videos, I did a reading sapphic romance novels. I read this book, Love and Other Natural Disasters, in that video, and I decided not to give this a star rating because I don't think I am the target audience for this book. So I don't want to like kind of put my thoughts and opinions out there too much on it because it just doesn't feel right, because this book feels very juvenile and really young and like it's written for a very young audience, and I'm obviously not that. So I think that parts of me not enjoying it might have just been that I'm too old for it. Nozomi has it all figured out. A summer in San Francisco, the perfect internship, and fake dating the girl of her dreams. Lucky for her, when it comes to love, there's no such thing as a perfect plan. So we have a fake dating trope in this book. It has a very diverse cast of characters. This just felt too young for me, so we're just gonna leave it at that. Then I read On the Same Page by Haley Cass, and it was on Kindle Unlimited. I picked it up just because the cover looked intriguing. I think this might be my new favorite lesbian romance book. I devoured this. It had me like giddy and giggling and kicking my feet. I just thought it was the cutest thing. So we are following two best friends. They were put together as roommates in college and have been friends ever since. One is a journalist and the other is an influencer. We're following their friendship as it turns into something a little more. There is a big miscommunication in the start of this book, and one of them realizes that maybe she is attracted to her friend, and it goes from there. I just thought that this was a cutesy little romance. I really enjoyed it. It had me, like I said, giggling and kicking my feet. It's a rom-com. It was so enjoyable. I want to read more queer books like this. Oh my gosh. So obviously a 5-star read for me. And last but not least, I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I actually asked over in my little chat, my little broadcast channel with you guys, what I should read out of 3 books, and this is what you picked. This book is so well loved. People love this book. And maybe I am just not in a YA place right now, or I am enjoying YA, because I didn't love this as much as I thought I would. I think I ended up giving it 4 stars. Confirming. I ended up giving it 3 stars. Andy Bell has gone missing, and in a bit of a murder-suicide thing, because they think that she is dead and her boyfriend Saul did it. So we're following Pip, a high school senior who is doing a kind of senior thesis, an investigation on the disappearance of Andy Bell. And we find out right off the bat, she does not think that Saul killed Andy. So she starts digging around and puts herself in a little bit of danger because someone does not want her digging around. Maybe it just felt a little young for me because I had just read a super good thriller in my opinion, and then this just didn't do it for me, which I am so sad to say. And I think a part of it is the ending does not give me closure because it's a series, and I didn't know that. I believe it's a trilogy, and I don't know if I like my thrillers as a trilogy, because I just kind of want it like tied up with a little bow. Here's what happened, here's who did it, and I did not get that from this because we don't find out what we want to find out in the end. So that was a little disappointing for me. I honestly don't know if I'll finish the series. I'm glad I read it just because everyone loves it so much, and I felt kind of left out that I hadn't read it, but I don't think this is a book I'm going to think about again, which is interesting because I watch so many people on BookTube that rave about this and say it's like a 6-star read, that they're absolutely obsessed. I wasn't. It was pretty fine. I probably won't think about it ever again. Now, what do I want to read this month? This is a very loosey-goosey TBR because I actually struggle a lot following through with things. I have some ideas in my head, some things I want to do. I honestly don't know. First, I'm gonna read Babel because I've already started it and it's slow going. It is a political fantasy. I am, though, at the point in the book I'm in, struggling to call it a fantasy because where's the magic? Where's the magic? It's a book that's gonna make me think, I know, so it's a little long. It's taking me a bit to get through. So we're gonna read Babel. Stay tuned, I am filming it. I picked up 3 thrillers off my shelf that I really want to read, and maybe we're gonna do a reading thrillers video because you guys like those, I like those. Sometimes thrillers are just like a fun little quick read for me. So we have The Long Weekend, 3 Couples, 2 Bodies, 1 Secret. Jilly McMillan. I read a couple of her books and I really liked them. This one says that they're going on an isolated retreat, or so it says on the website. They're having a girls' night alone, but before the men arrive the next day. Everything looks perfect, but what they hoped would be a relaxing break soon turns to horror Upon arrival at Dark Fell Barn, the women find a devastating note claiming one of their husbands will be murdered. There's no phones, no cell service, and no way at all to check on their men. Friendships fracture as the situation spins wildly out of control. I've been wanting to read Daisy Darker for so long. I even have started it a couple times. Here, let's just take, there's a bookmark in here. I know there is. Daisy Darker, what a name. Is a strange, secretive family is assembling for Nana's 80th birthday party in Nana's crumbling Gothic house on a tiny island. Finally back together one last time, when the tide comes in, they will be cut off from the world for 8 hours. Then, at the stroke of midnight, as the storm rages, Nana's found dead, and an hour later, the next family member follows. Trapped on an island where someone is killing them one by one, the Darkers must reckon with their present danger as well as their past before the tide goes out and all is revealed. Ooh, I like the fact that there's a time limit. We have 8 hours, and that it's kind of, what's it called? Like a closed room mystery. We know who's there, we know who our cast of characters are. I like that, so I'm really excited for that one. And I love Lisa Jewell. I have a couple of her books on my bookshelf. I'm really excited for this one. None of this is true. I know I've heard great things about it. When a famous podcaster interviews a stranger promising to divulge the story of a lifetime, secrets emerge that threaten to expose the truth of the lives they've both been working hard to project and protect. Exciting. I haven't actually thought much about what else I'm going to add to this TBR. Join me on the floor. This entire thing, this side, and this side, is all my physical TBR. Honestly, I'm confused because I don't see the book I wanted to read anywhere. I'm so confused. Okay, this was on my TBR for April. I don't think I want to read it anymore. I'm not ever, but just right now. Instead, I think we're going to pick up a beast of a book. Oh my god, 823 pages. That's not as big as I thought it was. We are going to finally read The Priory of the Orange Tree because I know this is fantasy and I know this is queer. And I love those things. So, it says the House of Baratheon has ruled Ines. I'm not going to read the back of this because I can't say these words, but we're going to add that to the TBR and put this back. Okay. I want to read this. This summer will be different. It is Carly Fortune's newest novel. She has written 2 other books that I have read and enjoyed. So I'm so excited to read this one. I'm extra excited though because this is a romance that takes place on Prince Edward Island, which is the place that I'm from. So I think that is just so cool. I do not read many books that take place on PEI. It is so small. Carly writes really good summery romances and they take place in like vacation hotspots. So it makes sense as a Canadian author writing about Canadian vacation hotspots. She would write about PEI. I'm so excited for this. This book actually does not come out until, when it says 5/7/24, is the month the 5 or the month the 7? May 7th. Oh my god, it's out next week. Next week this comes out. Guys, go get it. I am so excited. I cannot confirm that it's good. I've not read it. This is an advanced reader copy. Allie's currently reading it though, and she is almost done. And is it good? She says it's really good. So this is definitely going on my TBR. I've been waiting for her to finish it, but she's a slow reader, guys. I just say that because I always make fun of her for reading slower than me. She likes to savor things, food, good books. I don't savor anything. If I like something, I need to devour it. It takes place over 5 years. It is a romance between a girl and her best friend's brother. They have a little one-night fling. I vowed never to repeat it, but we know they will. So here we go. This is my May TBR. I keep, oh my geez Louise. I've been snoozing that alarm this whole video. Okay, I keep my TBR for the month separate than my huge TBRs. So these are gonna go right here. We're missing one. No, we're not. That's it. 5 books. I see so many people do these videos and I never have done one. So you guys are gonna have to let me know down below if this is something that you like. Should we make this a monthly thing? I mean, what do you think? Is this something you'd like in addition to all of our fun little reading vlogs? Let me know. Thank you for watching. We'll be back next week with another reading video and I'll see you then. I love to chat with you guys down in the comments, so let me know what's on your May TBR, or let me know either what's on your May TBR or the best book you read in April. Okay, I love chatting with you guys, so this was fun. This was long. This was very rambly.